Hey, welcome back to Metropole Grid. My name is Andrej.
My name is Jeff.
And this is round 5 of NANPC Montreal. We are a bit after lunch. Mind you, these two players are both undefeated going into round 5. We're going to have a wild game on the left. This is Frank, Montreal local. He's playing some kit. This is probably not dissimilar to what we saw a couple rounds ago, the sort of Orca, the sort of Lobisomu. That is the kit deck that absolutely exploded here in Rebellion with Rehearsal. How are you finding kit right now, Jeff?
You know, it's so funny to me because I did enjoy Kit back in again 2014 or so when Kit was really bad.
Not good. Yeah.
I was playing Stealth Refractor Kit because that's the kind of player I was. And now I don't play Kit anymore, and so I just go every time a Lobosome hits the table, I just sigh a little bit and go, ugh, okay.
Ban me, please. We talked about how we like scoring behind 2 pieces or 1 piece of ice early, and it's really hard when the Lobisomu comes down. But if anyone can maybe do it a bit quicker than that wolf can sneak out. This is Terence on the right coming in from the Torsaug grid. Terence won NANPC Toronto. It was like 2-3 months ago. He was playing some op combo, and now he's on a bit of a combo deck. This is not only precision design. This is the shoot the moon precision design, your digital life, the big deal. Have you played this one too? I'm a big fan of this HB deck. It's a lot of fun to play.
I've only played it a little bit. I think I'm like a little bit poisoned by playing with some of the like best Reg PD players, and they always just go, I think Reg PD beats this. Or like is like, you know, it's like, oh, it's 2% better. And I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me. But you know, I've definitely watched you play it on stream. It's a very fun deck.
It's quick. And we'll see here. Okay, this is a very interesting game. You can see a bit of Terence's hand here. He did just mulligan. Did you see what he drew into?
It looked like a Grease in the Palm and 4 agendas, maybe?
Yep. And I think he just drew into another agenda. I think Terence, after the mulligan here, man, that's an Iqua. Terence is holding like 11 points of 18. This is a really weird game. He's going to click to draw again. Another agenda, a Midnight 3.
And you can,
so yeah.
This is really tough. Genuinely, the hardest question here, Terence, is, do I play Greasing the Palm and not install? Or do I click for a credit and discard a card? Or discard an extra card? This is such a tough board state.
This matchup is fascinating. We're down to 1 click, and there's so much to learn about this matchup. This is a really hard thing to do, where Terence is agonizing over turn 1, so clearly you can tell if you're watching Terence, something went wrong. What PD open is draw, credit, discard cards, install nothing. If I'm sitting across the table from this, I know something has gone terribly wrong, and now it's up for Frank to sniff it out. The problem is, Frank has the best regular value runner open of all time, and he is sticking to his plan. He is playing his board state. Sure gamble, Diesel. Like, we're going to play all these good cards. We're here on the board state, yeah?
I will say I don't hate prioritizing a little bit of setup here as the runner over trying to punish the corp, because those agendas in HQ are not going anywhere. But this dirty laundry, I think, is not where I would put it. Yeah. I would say in basically against any deck, not just a PD that has literally 6 agendas in hand, your dirty laundry should go onto HQ, not R&D if HQ is open. Knowing that information is really important, and the density of agendas in HQ is almost always higher than it's going to be in R&D, even on turn 1.
I always touch HQ turn 1 again. If they put something in the remote server, they have fewer cards in hand. They're generally not putting agenda out turn 1, and now Terence has to do something with his board. Now, daily cast, another run could have there. Just 3 on the table after opening turn. What do you think these 3 cards are? There's a chance that some of these are Rashidas or Marylands or whatever you can imagine, and Terence just didn't draw any ice. But there's also a big chance there's just 3 agendas on the table, which is the only way you can panic your way out of this hand. 6 hand size sometimes means you can hold 6 agendas.
Yeah, so with 11 credits here as the runner, I'm just going and touching all of these cards.
Fencer Fueno coming down first, finding a Luminal. That is going to be a Fencer credit. That is a great agenda. And once you see that on the table, you might know something is strange here. Now you have a couple more clicks here. We're going to check number 3. If you find 2 agendas, what's going on? What do you think the next server is?
I mean, the next server has to also be an agenda here.
Has to be an agenda.
Yeah.
And luckily, It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is, you know what's funny here? I think as Terence, you would rather score the Midnight 3 because then at least you
Yes.
get out of this board state. But instead, 7 credits is not as much what Terence wants nearly as much as just more cards.
Yeah, he got to keep the worst agenda, which is really infuriating. Just 7 more credits. His hand now still has an Iqua, I think 2 off-world offices, and 1 copy of Big Deal, which is very interesting. Because if he can cheat out the next 2-pointer, he actually can Big Deal his way out and close the game a bit faster. But this is PD turn 3. Scrubber's coming down. Now, not a lot of cards are trash here. Maybe you're thinking that opening with 3 cards on the table looks like an acid deck, but we have the Fencer Fueno, so we'll see how well these Scrubber counters get used. We're touching R&D here. Again, there's so many points in HQ, and just seeing another seamless launch off the top.
Yeah. Again, if you know, there's a small argument to be made that like, oh, 3 agendas. What are the odds there's a 4th agenda in HQ? But again, I think checking HQ is probably the more valuable of the checks there if we're going to make a run. I think that like if it's me, this Scrubber was it's a difficult thing to see paying out, especially with a Fencer on 3. Yeah.
Yeah, Fencer on 3 that fast is the best you can ask for. We paid 1 to keep the Fencer around, so now we paid a lot of money just to have the ability to trash things over the next couple turns. Now, Greasing is our first ice we drew. I think it's an Ablative Barrier, and I'm wondering here if we're jamming an agenda and saying sometimes it's hard to tell if Kit has the Spark, if Kit has the Breaker, let alone if you rip a Spark, whether you hit the Orca or not. If we can cheat out another agenda here, Terence has the chance to get to 4 points and then Big Deal out the Iqua in hand. Again, his hand still has up to somewhere between 7 and 9 points from a deck that has 18. I think at this point in the game, there's only 1 more agenda in R&D.
Yeah, I think you just have to kind of see what your opponent has here, see how willing they are to check. We're going to see a trick shot done by Scott Uminga. Fantastic art here. Gonna see
Toronto.
2 cards off of R&D.
Now, Terence is feeling fine about his R&D aggression. Now, you're going to force the res on their remote server, but you're going to get the 2 credits. The 2 cards you're going to see in R&D, there's very few agendas in there. Rashida, you can trash it. We're going to use Fencer Fueno instead of Trick Shot just so
Try
you
and
stop
save some
her.
credits. And a Midnight 3. This is
Okay.
this is the like reverse pile shuffle nonsense where all of your agendas have just ended up on top of your deck. We're going to see a remote here. Ablative Res, we get to install a card. I'm guessing we're going to see Rashida in a brand new remote just to make sure that you use up as much of the runner's time as possible. I think that is the most you can hope to do here. And as the runner, you definitely do need to go and deal with this Rashida, but it's obvious not going to cost you too much.
And that was a bit of a low value trick shot, right? Like I like to play trick shot when I have my breakers and I can force issues here. Technically the credits on the trick shot were entirely wasted. It was 1 click to force a res on the remote server, but just starting with the remote server too means that you don't have to worry about ablative or if you trash things for drafter, I guess. But we'll see again, there's just so much pressure on, or it seems like there's more focus on R&D in this game where I think, again, now we finally get HQ pressure here. If we want to go for Steve, but there's a chance here if we see an ice and an ablative, we can go for the Quetzal if you want to just run this down. If Steve comes down here, it is going to really encourage you to be running the server that this board state doesn't make it obvious. Because again, there's a lot of agendas you've seen so far. There's still a lot of points in hand. Quetzal coming down. We're going to charge that Ablative Barrier. If there's another agenda in that remote server, if Terence made that call, this will be game. Unless, I think this is last click. That might be the one problem we have.
Yeah, I would not. Ooh. Oh, it's a last click. It's an Iqua.
Yeah,
I don't love this Quetzal. I don't love this Quetzal install. Basically,
it's so aggro
because the game is not done, and like Terence is still 2 agenda scores away from the game being done, and we have such a free Steve. Or honestly, right now, just doing anything else with your clicks is kind of how I would look at it. Dealing with this Rashida, letting this Rashida fire also feels like a big potential liability here as the runner. Could even just let Terence could luck into effectively the double seamless here.
He has it. We know he has it, which is I think why Frank was as aggressive, because Frank saw 2 seamless, 1 returning off of the off of the precision design. So that's why he was going for the Quetzal, I'm imagining. Still very aggressive. I think in hand we have off-rolled office, Iqua. So if my math is correct, there might be no points in R&D or just 1, but double seamless after getting the click back there, getting an ice on HQ, protecting the server. We're going to be on game point here for both players. Terence has the ability to close this game with such a wild and weird start with Big Deal, I think might still be in hand. If he can get to 17 credits, he can just score 4-2. This game is surprisingly close for as tragic as a start the Corporation mulliganed into.
I'm wondering if you think that Big Deal is your out here, if you go for actually recurring the greasing the palm to basically discount that Big Deal by effect 2 credits or so. You know, that may not be a line that every runner is going to be playing around. They'll be like, oh, you're only at 15. I'm actually completely safe. But I think, you know, it's tricky. The other thing is with this ice on HQ, you know, I don't hate this single for R&D, but I do kind of feel like you want to, at some point, force a res on HQ here. The credits are relevant. This could be a barrier. A drafter fire is obviously not ideal, though.
So we've seen 10 points so far out of a deck that's 18. So seeing more agendas here, I don't know exactly what we're expecting. The HQ was ice with the red level, so you're assuming that is where more points are. That's where the pressure is. That's where the ice came down. I think there's a chance there's only one ice or one agenda, excuse me, in R&D. So Terence might be able to go the whole game without icing that up.
Yeah, I think it's actually
push this out.
The big thing from Terence there, like I almost wonder if Terence could have red leveled and iced R&D even though the win was in HQ, just to send us as a signal to the runner, like, oh, this is where the points are. Because even if you are flooded here as the corp, it feels like the flood should be over with, you know, 11 points in the score area out of 18. Like that does happen.
There might be some burner respect again. I think that is the worst thing for Terence there with that many points in hand, because he does still have 2 or if not even 3 agendas in hand. I think burner just loses him the game on the spot.
Yeah,
YDL, we're up to 13.
That's pretty fair.
Now in a remote server, you know, Quetzal can check this for a click. So whatever's in here, we're just trying to drag the run around. I think we paid 2 or 3 credits for Trickster Taka, for Fencer Fueno. I think Fencer Fueno has taken money away now from Frank, but Spark, we're definitely trying to find the Lobiselmang here more than the Orca, and we get that off the top. Some decks are running multiple copies to get more chances of finding the Wolf, but now we can start face checking. The 1 ice on HQ there still, I think there's 7 points in HQ.
Woof. Yeah, I mean, but this is, you know, servers are now completely open. I think this is actually a big part of why the Big Deal PD is coming. It's so difficult to tax out runners that get these sort of setups going. We see a run on R&D. It is just a magnet. I think I would expect to see a run on the remote. I think that makes sense. It's probably nothing too scary because you were already presenting a way to get in. But
yeah,
if it's a Rashida, like, it's just very rough if a Rashida fires, making a run on archives, a greasing the palm, and a face down seamless launch. So all 3
face down seamless launch. So Terence didn't shuffle his hand, but that greasing the palm came out of his hand on turn 1. So when the corporation's discarding a greasing the palm from hand on turn 1 from 6 hand size, what is his hand, right? Like, I think seeing that screams there's still more agendas in HQ. It's a bit of a hard read, but like that card does not get discarded.
Yeah, greasing the palm should basically never get discarded. And honestly, seamless launch probably should not get discarded either in almost any board states. Did we see the other Ikoa just drawn off the top there?
There's a chance HQ just is like that. Now, nothing was rest of the remote server, so we're assuming the Tranquility or a Mana Garm just to waste time. But finally getting an ice on R&D, and again, at this point in the game, I'm not sure if there's any more agendas in R&D. Now, one single ice, or one single run on HQ, I think HQ is mostly, if not half, agendas. Taka has been just sapping credits. I mean, Fencer Fueno, excuse me. Fencer Fueno has just been sapping credits from Frank, hoping one day to use those.
Yeah, Fencer and Scrubber here, looking like a little bit of a... This is why these cards are not usually super popular in the meta at the moment. They just have a lot of games or matchups where they're pretty dead. So we're going to install Rashida in a new remote.
So not an upgrade, it seems? Or just to keep the runner busy, maybe. Off the top, Tranquility. Fencer Fueno finally going to get to work, so we are trashing that. Now, sometimes you don't want to trash on the top of R&D. If that's a great draw or not for Terence, it's up to you to decide, but single axis, getting the money there, breaking ablative. Not with Quetzal. We're going to pay credit to charge the Lobi. I think that's fair. You still have that Quetzal if you want to run the remote server, and
we're
going back here.
I think we're going to see a Spin Doctor.
I was wondering if using the Lobi there. You can Quetzal there if you want, and it's a Spin Doctor on top of the deck. That is Fencer Fueno finally. She's eating good, but Spin Doctor hitting the bin. So now checking the Rashida. We know it's there.
Yep.
Going to empty out that fencer in one turn. And back here to Terence. So, if Terence has big deal, greasing, and an agenda, if there's a tranquility in the remote server, you go to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You're close. If you have a hedge fund, you can win if you have a hedge fund here. But this deck doesn't have hedge fund, so you need an economy play. You need like YDL, greasing, big deal. And you actually can close the game out.
So it looks like we're just going to greasing. I don't
think there's agendas in there. He's just trying to keep Frank busy, and I love that play when you're holding half your hand is agendas. Just taking some credits there, greasing an install, paying 1 for it. Now he has the money potentially to score out here. YDL installed, big deal will take you to 7 points. Big deal paying 17 for 4 advancements. Will fast advance any of the 4-2s in hand, and I think we have the full suite of off-world offices in there.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder because by greasing and paying 1, he doesn't have free access, like he can't score immediately on this upcoming turn. And that feels a little bit, unless there's the 3rd greasing in there. This was the surprise snare that Terence was talking about. And again,
there's that one snare in his deck. It's sick.
This is what you're telling me you weren't going to spoil for me. I remember Terence talking about this. I think firing this snare is strictly incorrect for his game plan.
I think it is. He's so far away now from big dealing. I think he has a big deal in hand.
I guess greasing to put a tag, gain an advancement, but with a luminal gone, it's kind of irrelevant. So I appreciate the meme, Terence, but we're seeing why a snare in every deck doesn't actually make much sense.
I asked Terence if he flatlined anybody, and he said no. I don't think the snare was that good, but once you see it, especially in open deck lists, there's slightly some respect there. Now, it's trashing 2 harmonies from hand, so your recursion card did get ground out, which is good fun. And stone shapes are going to get some card draw. Looks like we're also going to clear the tag, which there is some greasing the palm respect in this matchup specifically.
Yeah, for sure. The grease in the palm respect, I think, is somewhat reasonable, though I think knowing these deck compositions, it's not actually needed. Maybe you could make the argument that you want to protect your DJ Quetzal here, which...
You gotta protect Fueno. You paid so much money for her.
I think Fueno has just about broken even, which for a zero-cost card is like... Well, I mean, actually, you can ask for more than that. Usually for a zero-cost card, we want at least an easy mark's worth of value, but we will see if Fencer can generate that value.
Now, Frank down to 4 credits. We have some Fencer money. Rashida's in the remote server behind his second ice. And this is where the lobby, right? Like that 2 ice remote server, there's always a threat. Any card that's unadvanced here, you can seamless out. Now, that snare was sitting there for a couple turns until Frank finally bit and said, I need to check what this is. I would have no idea what it could have been in the remote server. Maybe a spin doctor, but if it's a tranquility, probably would have been rezzed. Maybe it's a mana garm you're flushing out early. But now I wonder if seeing 1 snare makes you a bit more wary of what Terence is up to there. So far, things have looked pretty strange with that opening hand. Maybe it's just all snares in there, but like maybe Frank is now walking on eggshells. Like the mood of the game has probably changed after you hit remote snare in HB.
Yeah, but at the same time, just run with 5 cards in hand and nothing bad can happen to you. And it does seem like what Frank is set up to be able to do here. I think, you know, just recovering economically is totally fine here as Frank. You're not actually in much danger of anything too eventful happening on this. Actually, no, that's not true. Yeah, I was about to say, wait, hold on. Seamless wins the game here. Yeah. I guess, wait, are all 3 Seamlesses in the bin, though? No, there's 1 in hand.
I think at least 1 in hand, yeah. It was brought back by PD. Now, 4 cards with the mandatory, so YDLs can put you up to 17 credits. There's a chance that Terence is actually, I think, only 1 card short. He's counting the cards in hand. But if he has YDL install big deal, he can close the game out if he has all of that. Now, he might be short of credit. He's doing the hand count here. Probably still your digital life, so we'll see. Oh, Sudden Commandment is a start. I think this technically breaks even, because you can Sudden Commandment, pay 1, draw 2, YDL. It's not intuitive, but your digital life now. We're going to count it out. We need to get to 17 here. We're at 19.
19 is a big number. If he gets this, that is the game. He'll have recovered from one of the worst possible corpse starts. He's unclear if he's going to pay 3 here.
But if he has it, he just doesn't install advance, right? Like, sorry, install big deal. Does he not have it? I'm pretty sure I saw a big deal in hand on turn 1.
I don't think I ever saw. I don't remember seeing the big deal, but
So it looks like he's pushing something. If he had a big deal, that would have been game, barring the Ikwa, and we know he does have off-world offices in hand. He's gonna have to discard some cards here. Whether he's finally using the Spin Doctor to get cards out of hand here, this looks like it could be the last turn. Lobby with 2 counters. You are always going to get 3 counters, the outermost being a code gate. As long as you can break all the subroutines, that shouldn't be too difficult. And we're up on 7 credits, expecting trick shots and overclock, so that remote server is not incredibly safe.
no, I mean
He must not have it.
That server seems pretty. The remote seems pretty thin. Jailbreak on HQ. I do like the jailbreak on HQ. I like this drafter res as well. Eating up the Lobosome. And now Frank is going to get 2 hit swings at this 6-card HQ.
He gets a card draw here, but we're going to be touching. He had 2 cards. I think half of this agenda's, if he can find any of them, and there's the off-world office. Frank getting to 8 points, showing the hand there. No big deal, but there is still Ikwa in there, and I think he might have discarded something. I think there's a 4-2 in the remote. Just so many agendas. He had all the off-world offices in his hand after the mulligan. Jeff, what a weird game.
I mean, this was a tough one for Terence. You know, I think the kit didn't like try and exploit or open up the game, which is definitely was an option here, but did kind of try and stay economically in control. And like, you know, this one of the interesting things about this Man in the Moon style PD is because it is a bit more of a combo deck. If it doesn't draw the combo pieces, as it clearly didn't here, it lacks some of the like scary constant remote pressure that can exist in more reg PD decks. But to some extent, I don't think your deck matters that much when all you draw is agendas for the first half of the game.
Yeah, he didn't have the big deal in hand. I don't think he drew it. I think I must have saw it wrong in the hand. But if he had the big deal there, that was game. So he might have been trying to find it with the second commandment as well. So I'm not sure if Frank respected that line, but when you're on game point on the high credits, big deal just closes games out of nowhere. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know, both those players in Terrence's shoes, I would feel like that's a bad beat. But luckily, both these players did make the top cut. Frank went undefeated through the tournament. He did ID that final round there, coming in first place in Swiss. And I think Terence was just a couple placements behind. So both players will be returning in the top cut. Well done to both of them. That's an exciting game. Jeff, I didn't introduce you well at the beginning of this. I reckon people who watch might be familiar enough with you. You want to give a quick shout out to what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So I do some streaming on YouTube and Twitch at YsengrenSC, and I'm the head of Null Signal Organized Play. And if you have not bought your tickets for Worlds yet, you totally should. It is going to be an absolute blast of a time. I've just went and ordered several thousand cards of alt arts and prizes for all sorts of events. You do not have to win a lot to come home with an absolute haul of prizes. So come out, have a great time, and meet me, meet Andre, meet so many people in Netrunner, and turn us from names on the screen and voices on your comms to people you've met in real life and maybe even had some food with. So Worlds is always a blast. Make it out if you can. It is from October 18th to 20th in San Francisco.
I am stoked. It's like, by the time this goes up, maybe 3 weeks away. So it's sneaking up on us, but I am looking so forward to that. And speaking of looking forward to it, we have 2 more rounds of NANPC Montreal coming up and then some more top cuts. So don't go anywhere. You're watching NANPC Montreal on the Métropole Grid. See you in a bit. Hey, thanks so much for watching. And of course, huge shout out to Jeff for joining me once again. You can find his channel linked below, YsengrenSC. I'm a pretty big fan. He streams on Tuesday evenings, right after we finish, generally on our Tuesday East Coast afternoons. That game was fascinating, and for a minute I was actually looking at the game and was considering producing it a bit more like a replay review, because there's a lot to learn from that game if you want to go slowly, click by click, turn by turn. And a lot of it is about reading your opponent, trying to understand what they're up to based off of their draws, their body language, because there's a lot that Terence gave away, and some of it was not his fault. But that turn 1, when PD doesn't install any cards, draws and discards down 2 cards, it's up to you to understand what your deck does, but it's also up to you to understand what your opponent is doing across the table. And it's fascinating. There's so much information that can be told by just looking across, reading that game face, and seeing what's happening on the table. Huge shout out, mind you, to Frank, who had an absolutely fantastic day. And while that HQ pressure didn't connect until the last moment, in which I still think at that point there was multiple agendas in HQ, it made for quite an exciting game. Of course, I want to give a huge thank you to all these names and more. The Metropole Grid, we are supported on Patreon. And so all these names and all our daily cast patrons help give me the ability to put the time into motion graphics, editing, live streaming, the video stuff, the publishing. It all takes a lot of time, and I'm so stoked. I'm so lucky to be able to do this at the rate that I can do it, and that's entirely because of all these names here. So if you're interested in supporting Netrunner content like this, you can find the link in the description. Also, you want to take a second just to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. All that sort of stuff really helps the Metropole Grid grow on YouTube. The algorithm is as the algorithm is. And with that, we have 2 more rounds here in Swiss before we get to the top cut. So NANPC, quite an exciting event, and we have more gameplay coming just your way. Thanks for watching. Ciao.